Hey, Liron here. I want to share with you a process that is wonderful for letting go and painting more loosely, and that has to do with painting directly on paper, no pencil lines. I've been showing you a bit of that. If you can somehow manage to give it a try, you won't regret it. So I'm showing you here the starting stages of this process. And of course you can see the reference photo, and I'm starting with her hair, but I know that in the beginning I won't have the perfect orientation. So I'm kind of doing my best, but it's okay if you're not 100% accurate. It's okay if you're not as experienced in drawing and things aren't perfect. The idea is the more details and elements we add to the painting, the more context we have, and it's going to be gradually becoming easier and easier to place things within the scene. So for example, her head here in this angle, it's quite a challenge, right? It's a very difficult angle, but you know, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to recreate the shapes I see. My opinion about this and opinion and experience is that when you work this particular way, it becomes much easier to focus on the thing at hand. Now, it will vary from one individual to another. To me, when I don't have the pencil lines to look at, it makes it much more easier to focus on the thing I'm painting at the moment of painting it, and it's something I enjoy greatly. Now, I am running this a bit in time-lapse, but we're going to slow down in a couple of seconds, and I'll show you a bit more of the details and how I paint them. So, for example, you want to paint the jeans, you just go ahead, mix some kind of a blue, and put it on paper. Now, then you can take your time, observe it, and ask yourself, is it the right color? Is it the right value? And you will see me later on fixing these kinds of things. Overall, if you start light and your paint is wet enough, you do have a lot of time to fix mistakes, but the idea is there aren't really mistakes. It's more of a finding process. Now, to me, it's not a mistake if I mix the wrong color or value. It's a step in the direction of finding the color I want to use, right? Put a shadow and then I put the lights next to the shadow, no problem at all. It's a process of exploration. Now, again, the further you progress into this kind of a process, at first it will feel like maybe you're not making progress. Maybe things don't look exactly like the reference or good in general. But if you can just continue the process, I'm not telling you to trust the process. I'm not telling you to believe in yourself. What I'm saying is you continue the action of painting it as you see it. If you keep that up long enough, at some point, you'll see something on paper and you'll figure it out. It works. Look at how I'm putting in, by the way, a bit more of a brown over that blue, because the brown works better as a shadow color here. But in any case, you'll look up and suddenly you'll see it. You'll see the details. You'll see it realistically. It's almost as if I let you take a painting that is mid-process that I made, but because I made it, you don't have the familiarity blindness and you see it as something real. And it can be sometimes easier to continue from that point because we're past what's called the ugly stage. It's not really an ugly stage, it's a stage of just context being built. So you may have the experience of mid-painting, you'll look up at your painting and things will click, or sometimes it won't happen, you're too close to the picture. You might take a break and come back to it and you're like, oh yeah, that actually looks like the thing I'm painting. That actually looks like it. So you know, the woman on the left, now it's really connecting. To me at this point in the painting, I'm like, okay, it works, it looks like something, and then I can much more freely put in more elements. And this is how I painted so many of my recent paintings that it's becoming a really fun way for me to paint. I can play around with how much accuracy and how accurate I am and how much attention I'm putting to the details. I can crank it up and down like a volume knob. The more I feel like just letting loose and painting loosely, I can do that. Or if I do want to get something that is very close to the reference photo, I can crank that up as well. This is an example of me being quite loose. And it's fascinating to see that even when you're going that loose, the result can still read really, really well. And again, things that are not yet on paper, you're not limited by. Now, I have another theory as to why this works well, and this could be very personal, it could not work as well for you, but I think the fact that you don't have any lines on paper, it almost makes you where you would have before just relied on that, it makes you use more of your skills and engage more with the painting process. And that's the heart of it, because I'm thinking of shape, color, value all at once. And that engagement and really seeing it on paper and visualizing it as the final thing, because there's no pencil lines, I can't really look at the sketch or anything like it. I'm visualizing the thing I'm currently painting in the painting as the final thing. Then I can figure out, okay, maybe I need to push it in that direction or this direction, and it engages more of your psyche. And in that engaging of more of your psyche, I think there's a lot of power in painting something that looks good. And it's almost like a completely different medium that you're using. Almost like, if you've experienced this before maybe, painting plein air versus from a photo. When you first paint plein air, if you've already painted from photos, it feels foreign. It feels strange. Things don't connect. It's harder to mix colors. Maybe you don't have the same palette with you. Maybe it's just seeing things differently in front of you that makes it awkward. That's just how it is. Almost like using a different medium, even though it's the same medium. This is a similar process. Now, I'm not saying that doing this process is necessarily good for you or it's an accurate, a good way to paint. What I am doing is sharing this with you as an exploration. Maybe it's something you'd like to explore. And I am curious to hear your thoughts if you do end up exploring this. Let me know in a comment down below. I know a lot of people are already painting this way even before I started talking about it in videos. But if it's something maybe new to you, let me know. I'm curious to hear what your experience has been like with it. Now I'm going to add a background. It's funny because the painting looks so good that you could be tempted just not to add a background, and in which case you're totally fine. You don't have to. What I was seeking with the background here is to make the highlights, for example, on their arms and the different details, to make them more prominent. And by adding a darker background, which I haven't darkened enough yet, it's going to bring that out. And you're going to see it in a couple of seconds. It gives the highlights more meaning. It's something that you often see with my cars. The highlight on the rooftops usually gets more meaning when you paint the ground. Things often look really light when in fact they're a mid-value or light to a mid-value, and placing the ground like this and the kind of background behind them, it's a ferry, it's supposed to be a ferry, and that kind of fence behind them can really help. Now, I did see this little divider in the fence thing. I put it in, but I know I'm gonna need to darken this layer a bit more. So I'm going over everything. Things are starting to dry, but honestly, when you have such a large wash and you're painting loosely and directly to begin with, you can do a lot more. By the way, can you hear the birds chirping? You can do a lot more from the beginning and be a little looser. Now I want to show you, look at how long it takes me to just mix this kind of a color that I'm uncertain of for the background, because I need to darken it more. And there's more. I cut out about a third of the mixing, so it would have continued even in time-lapse. And notice how at this very stage, when I'm starting to add those darks yet again to the background, it will start giving meaning to, even her sweater will appear to be lighter in comparison. The highlights on the hair will appear to be lighter suddenly. The highlights on the arms will get more meaning. It's exactly this kind of a thing that provides more context. To me, it's great fun to build that context in this way. And again, even if you're not that good at drawing, even if you aren't as accurate as me that first time, the beauty about this is you have your entire faculties engaged with the painting process, and you can always add and fix and edit and correct. You don't have to get things right the first time. In fact, I didn't, which is why I'm now going back and adding more shadows, or maybe I'm lifting, or I don't get everything right the first time too. The thing is, how much freedom you have with the medium doesn't necessarily depend on your skill. It depends more on understanding what it is like to paint freely. And that's a kind of a chasm or a fence. It's not hard to jump over. You just have to kind of experience it once or twice. And this is yet again another experience that could take you there. Now we're really close to finishing this. Again, I did cut out quite a lot of the process. The process was about 25 minutes. So this video is going to be about 10 minutes. That's fine. But you see, these shadows start to give more meaning to the highlights on the hands, and the dark background gives more meaning to the highlights. It's the accumulation of a lot of small details that play a role in building this up. Now here is the final result. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Let me show it to you zoomed out a bit so you can see how cool the impression looks like. The colors aren't perfect. They're not perfectly matching the colors in the original. That's fine. That's not even my intention. My intention is to make something that looks cool, that has life to it, and that is quite representational, and I couldn't be happier with this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do want to learn how to paint more freely and more loosely, check out the frustration-free watercolor course, link in the description box below. As always, I want to thank you so much. By the way, if you're interested in more of my art, you can check out my gallery, lirongallery.com, or you can check out my new book, Painting a Masterpiece. It's an art book, it's not a how-to book. You might enjoy that. I want to thank you. These are the kinds of things that keep the light on here. And by the way, I want to also thank, lastly, everyone who supports me over on Patreon. If you want to receive credits at the end of the videos, be sure to check that out. I also just posted there a couple of days ago a post that's open to everyone. So in case you missed that, I'm sharing a couple of paintings from every year that I've been painting from 2016 up to 2024 with my top insights. Check that out. We'll talk to you again real soon. Take care.